Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 3 of Dominion for Dummies. We got 10 new kingdom cards here, and I will explain them all before we start a game with them, which is something I want to do from now on if I can. First of all, because it's hard to follow, at least for new players, when you play a game and explain cards while doing that, all the stuff going on the screen and so on. And second of all, I want to tell you more about strategies with certain cards, or when to buy them, when not to, or when they are good, when they are not good, or if they are good at all even. So yeah, let's not use or waste any time. Let's use our time and not waste any time. So, we got Spy, which is an attack costing 4, and as you see, Spy is a cantrip. So it usually doesn't hurt your deck unless you draw it dead. Then the attack part is each player reveals the top card of his deck and either discards it or puts it back, your choice. So if you reveal an estate, you will say, hey, I will discard that, because then it will not be in my next hand. And if your opponent reveals an estate, you would say, hey, put it back, because then it will be in your next hand. Spy isn't a very good card. It sounds okay, but actually it's pretty darn weak. The problem with Spy is that the attack is really weak. Like when you put back an estate for your opponent, nothing changes for him except that he knows that he has an estate there. Because if you didn't play a Spy, the estate will be there even. Because the estate doesn't suddenly appear because you play a Spy. It's there, and if you play a Spy, you see it, and your opponent sees it, and then he knows about it. So it's like you didn't even play a Spy. Then there's the other case where you discard key cards for your opponent, like he reveals a silver, and you say, hey, you discard that, because otherwise it will be in your next hand. But that is pretty weak too, because that helps him cycling, and cycling actually is good for him, because when you cycle faster through your deck in Dominion, your newly bought action cards and money cards will reach your hand faster. So yeah, the discarding and putting back for you is pretty okay, but the attack is pretty weak. So there are combinations in which Spy really shines, but other than that, Spy is not really a good buy for 4. The problem here is that the opportunity cost of a Spy is at least the silver, because silver is there in every game, and silver costs 3, so every time you buy a Spy you could buy a silver instead. And usually a silver in your hand is better than a Spy in your hand, and a silver in your deck is far better than a Spy in your deck. So yeah, usually a weak card, sometimes it shines. There's one combination in this very game, but we will come to that when we come to that card. Then we got Ironworks, which is an action card costing 4. And it's like an upgraded Workshop. Because like Workshop, it gains you a card costing up to 4. But if you gain an action card with Ironworks, you get +1 action. So if you play Ironworks, gain a Spy, Ironworks suddenly isn't terminal anymore, and you can play another Ironworks and gain another Spy, for example. Then when you gain a treasure card, you get +1 coin, which is also pretty good. And if you gain a victory card, you draw another card. So Ironworks Gardens is a lot better than Workshop Gardens, for example, because you draw another card every time you gain a Gardens. Then we got Conspirator. Conspirator is the terminal silver for 4, which sounds terrible, but if you've played 3 or more actions this turn, +1 card, +1 action. So if you play a Spy, and then a Conspirator, you have played 3 actions this turn, and suddenly Conspirator becomes a cantrip silver, which is a lot better than a usual silver. However, if you only play Spy and then a Conspirator, it's a terminal silver, which is terrible. Conspirator really shines in engines or in drawing engines because if you play a village and then a smithy, then you can start playing conspirators and it's a cantrip because conspirator will be the third action card and suddenly all your conspirators are cantrips. So really good in engines, usually terrible otherwise, actually. Then we got Baron, another action card costing 4, which gives you +1 buy. And you may discard an estate from your hand. If you do, +4 coins. And if you don't, you have to gain an estate. So Baron is a pretty good buy from 4-3, because in the beginning of the game it will often collide with the estates and nets you an early gold, because it gives a lot of coins. But in the end game it's pretty weak, because the probability of colliding with the estates decreases the longer the game goes on and the more cards you have in your deck. However, it's still pretty good with trashing. Like when your deck consists of 7 cards, it's more likely that your Baron will collide with an estate. Or in drawing engines, because if you have your whole deck in your hand, you can play 3 Barons, discard your 3 starting estates, and you have +12 coins. And 4 buys. Then we got Council Room, which is the only 5-cost card in this game. And it draws you 4 cards, gives you 1 buy. As you probably can imagine, this is a very strong card in a big money deck. Because, mainly because of the buy, also because of the +4 cards. However, the drawback of Council Room is that when you play it, each other player draws a card, so you increase the hand size of your opponent when you play a Council Room. You can counter that in an engine by playing a discard attack afterwards, like a militia. But if you don't and use Council Room in an engine, you will end up with your opponent having a 10-card hand or something, which is terrible. But in big money, it really shines. It's a good enabler for big money on big money boards. And mainly because of the draw and the buy. The buy is really the good thing, because if you hit an early 9, for example, with Council Room, you can buy a gold and silver. Where you would buy a province, maybe, when you play Smithy big money. Then we got Courtyard, which is an action costing 2, and it's like a Smithy, because when you play it, you draw 3 cards. It's terminal. However, contrary to Smithy, you have to put a card from your hand on top of your deck after you played the Courtyard. Courtyard is really weak if you try to use it as a Smithy, because then it only draws you 2 cards. And it only draws you 2 cards. That is the main point, actually. However, Courtyard is one of the strongest big money cards there is in Dominion, because of the fact that you have to put a card from your hand on top of your deck. When you play a big money, you usually want to hit 3, 6, or 8 coins for a province, gold, or silver. And if you play a Courtyard and you suddenly have 5 in your hand, you can just stick back a silver and buy a silver, and have the silver in your next hand. Also, Courtyard does not have the problem of terminal collisions in big money decks, because if you have 2 Courtyards and draw the second Courtyard dead with your Courtyard, you can just put it on top of your deck, because it's in your hand. So Courtyard is a pretty strong big money enabler, but it's not very good in drawing engines. However, if Courtyard is the last action you play in your drawing engine, while you have your whole deck in your hand, you can seed your next turn with a good card. Like if you have an unused village in your hand, you can put that back and have it in your next hand, guaranteed. Which can be pretty good. Then we got Wishing Well, which is another cantrip. And after you draw a card and get your action, you name a card, and reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a name card, put it in your hand. So you wish for a card, and if you wished right, you get it in your hand. If you wish correctly with Wishing Well, which is kind of a tongue twister, Wishing Well can be a lap for 3. Because if you wish correctly, you basically draw 2 cards, get 1 action. It's a lap. Wishing Well can be pretty decent if you know what's going on in your deck. Like, if you play Wishing Well, have 4 cards left in your deck, and you know which 4 cards are lying there, you can often increase the probabilities of wishing correctly. Also, if you know which card is there to wish for, you might think, hey, this combos well with Spy, but actually it doesn't, because when you see your card with Spy and you play Wishing Well, you draw that card and then you wish for the next card. So Wishing Well doesn't combo with Spy at all. It also doesn't combo with itself, just because you draw a card before. However, there are certain cards in Dominion which show you more than the first card of your deck, so it combos well with these. Then we got Swindler, which is a Terminal Silver, first of all. It's an attack for 3, Terminal Silver. And then each other player trashes the top card of his deck and gains the card with the same cost that you choose. Swindler is actually one of the strongest attacks that doesn't cost 5 coins. Because, yeah, while Swindler is sort of swingy, but if you hit a copper with it, and the probability is pretty good with 7 starting coppers, you can make a curse of that copper, because curse has a cost of 0, copper has a cost of 0. If you hit an E-state with it, you will most likely swindle it into an E-state. And yeah, Swindler also can be pretty good against big money decks, because you will mostly hit coppers or silvers, which will be curses, or silvers can be action cards, which is terrible for a big money player. Like, when someone here plays Council Room big money, and you give him Wishing Wells for his silvers, he will draw those dead with his Council Room, which is terrible. Another good use of Swindler is to swindle good 5 cost cards into duchies at the beginning of the game. In the end it's not as good because duchies are 3 points, but in the beginning it's terrible for the player who gains the duchy. Then we got Shantytown, which is a village for 3, gives you +2 actions. And then you reveal your hand, and if you have no action cards in your hand, you draw 2 cards. So if you buy only 1 Wishing Well, it's a lap for 3, basically. That gives you 2 actions. 1 Wishing Well, 1 Shantytown, I'm sorry. However, Shantytown tends to get worse with more actions in your deck, because it will often happen to you that you play a Shantytown and you have 2 terminals in your hand, so the Shantytown, well, in that case it's good. But yeah, it will often happen that you play Shantytown and have 1 terminal in your hand, and the Shantytown is basically a dead card. However, if you have lots of Shantytowns, it can be good, because if you have 2 Shantytowns and a terminal in your hand, you play a Shantytown, reveal your hand, you do not draw any cards. But then you play your terminal, and then you play your second Shantytown and draw 2 cards. And in that case, it's pretty much exactly like a usual village. It's basically a little bit different from the usual village, but sort of serves the same purpose. And if it's the only village in a certain kingdom, it can be really, really good. I think it will be pretty good in this game, by the way. And last but not least, we got Great Horror, which is an action and victory card for 3, +1 card, +1 action when you play it, but also 1 victory point at the end of the game. So Great Hall is sort of like an estate that doesn't hurt your deck. It doesn't have a lot of uses, because it's just a cantrip and doesn't do you anything, or doesn't do anything good for you. But if you gain it with Ironworks, for example, Ironworks will suddenly be a cantrip, you get a victory point. Can be pretty good. Also, you can trigger conspirator chains with it. Okay, that's all the cards. We already lost a lot of time. Sort of. But yeah, I will search for an opponent and see you in the game, when we will think about which strategy to play in this kingdom. Okay, here we are in the game. And we have to think about strategy. We start with 4 and 3. And we could play Courtyard Big Money, which is really strong. But I think Ironworks, Great Halls and Conspirator Chains are better in this game, so I will open Ironworks. And with 3 I will buy Swindler. He opens Ironworks too. And I guess he will open Swindler too. Because Swindler is a very strong card in the beginning. When the deck of your opponent consists mostly of coppers, you can swindle into curses. This 4 will be a second Ironworks. And he buys a Great Hall. I'm not sure about that, because I can swindle that into silvers, which is something I will most likely do. I will gain a Great Hall, draw another card, because I gained a Great Hall, which is an action card and a victory card, so I draw another card, get another action, I can play the Swindler. Give him this curse. He bought a Shantytown from 3, by the way, which is pretty good for him, because he only has non-terminals, at least as long as he only gains action cards with Ironworks. Do I want a Conspirator already? I think I do. Here I will gain a Great Hall, and depending on what I draw, gain another Great Hall, or buy a Conspirator, or play Swindler, buy a Conspirator. We'll see. Gains the second Ironworks, and I suppose he buys a Great Hall. I gain another Great Hall, and I will buy another Great Hall. Here I will hopefully draw an Ironworks, which is a 1 in 4 chance, because there's still an Ironworks in there. And 3 coppers or 2? Yeah, I don't know. Draw the copper. But I will play a Swindler, give him yet another curse. And buy another Conspirator. Here this Conspirator will activate, because I can play these 2 actions before the Conspirator. And he should have really picked up a Swindler instead of Shantytown. Great Hall, Ironworks, Great Hall, play a Conspirator. And we have 6, which could be a gold. And I think it will be a gold. This will be another Conspirator. And as soon as Great Halls have run out, we will pick up a few Shantytowns. He gains a Baron, which I think is a terrible choice at the moment, at least at this point in the game. He also bought a Courtyard there, which I think is also a terrible choice. At least with the strategy he's going for. He has 5 and picks up a council room. I'm not sure if that is good for him. And his silver will become a silver. We will buy a province from 8. Just to give us a little bit of insurance. Although no piles are running low. So, doesn't really matter. He picks up the last Great Hall, which I wanted to pick up now. But I guess I will pick up a Shantytown instead. Play these 2 conspirators. We have 7. Which will be another Shantytown. And here I will gain a Shantytown again. And then I will start picking up more conspirators. Like this here will be a conspirator. And we have 2, but we won't buy anything. Because I do not think the courtyard will do me any good. At least not at the moment. Later when I have more Shantytowns, maybe. Yeah, here we played the Shantytown just so this conspirator triggers. And give him an estate for his courtyard. We have 7 again, we will pick up another conspirator. Instead of gold. Because at the moment I'm in the lead. He also has 2 curses, by the way. So I want to try to run out conspirators and Shantytowns. He has 6 and I suppose he is buying another gold. Here we can pick up another province. I shouldn't have played that last conspirator, I wasn't thinking, because it triggered the reshuffle. But yeah, we might as well play it out here. He trashed a Great Hall, he can gain a silver for that. And we will buy another province. What does he pick up for 5? He should pick up a duchy really at the moment. But he buys a Shantytown and I guess he rebuys his second courtyard. Gain a conspirator here. Play this Shantytown. We still have actions in our hand. Play this Shantytown. Gain another conspirator, buy nothing from 2. He gains an estate and buys a duchy. We won't follow with the duchy, we will buy another conspirator from 5 here. And he really should stop picking up Shantytowns because it will help me running out the piles faster. And this will be another province. It's pretty much guaranteed. Unless I draw really unlucky and draw all my victory cards now. Although I do draw 4 cards It's pretty unlikely. Picks up gold, not sure about that. Yeah, here we will gain another Shantytown. Play Conspirator, Conspirator. Play the Swindler. Swindler silver into a wishing well now. Oh, I should have picked a Shantytown. I wasn't thinking. We bought a third province, so this 7 will be a Conspirator. Now he buys the province himself. We are still in the lead. So this will be a Shantytown. And hopefully he can't province and Shantytown now. His wish didn't become true. Didn't come true. Yeah. Yeah, I did a big mistake there by giving him the wishing well. I should have given him a Shantytown because then this game would be over now. And now we cannot really end it. Or can we? Wait, he has 2 curses. Yeah. We should gain a Shantytown here, play this Shantytown. Play the Swindler. Give him a courtyard for that. And buy an estate. So yeah, thanks for watching and until next time.